Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I have an exciting guest in studio with me. But before we get to that, I need to ask my audience for a favor. Please visit cobrt.com, sign up for our newsletter, click on the media tab to see videos, photos that we have from past events, as well as the radio and podcast page. And while you're there, go ahead and click on the events tab as well and see what we have coming up. So that gets me started with today's show. And we have in studio Kim Shepheard of Shepheard Marketing. You have an interesting title, CMO at Shepheard Marketing. And so I am assuming that stands for Chief Marketing Officer.
Right. So I am a company of one and always wanted to be CMO, but now I'm an outsourced CMO for
Awesome.
small businesses. So after being in corporate for so long and trying to work my way up, I just decided to make my own job and title. So it's just more interesting than owner or founder. To me, it's just
CEO,
it's a marketing company.
Right?
I'm the CMO.
Exactly. I love that. Well, and I have to ask you, because I've only ever been in customer service, or now I'm in the business world, but I've never ventured out on my own. So I have to ask you here, how was that transition for you from in-house marketing to having your own company and being an outsourced marketer?
Actually, I think it's been a lifelong transition because I've always wanted to have my own business. But if I didn't go through different careers and jobs and having been in corporate, I wouldn't have had the skills to do what I'm doing right now. So I'm really grateful for all of that. Getting into business on my own, it's always scary. It's a journey. If you're not a person who studied business in school, you're really teaching yourself and learning from scratch everything. And I think that's the case with a lot of business owners. So I can relate to my clients because I've been there and I know what it's like to try and project your income and deal with customers and clients, and everyone has a different need and you're trying to meet all of that. I went to college originally for criminal justice. I wanted to be a police officer.
What? That's such a change. That's awesome, though.
Right. I didn't realize what it was going to entail. And when I was in college, I also did an internship with the police department. So I spent a day a week in different departments, which was really fun and interesting, and I got to pretend. So never had an issue with writing, always liked to write. That's always a huge part of everything that I've ever done. And I have side projects that I work on that I don't necessarily talk about, but I think it's very important to find out what you're good at and really go for that. And marketing was something that I fell into. I started working in television. It was paid programming called World Business Review at Health Journal Television. So I was a writer and production liaison there. And then I ended up, my next job was in marketing in healthcare. And so it just dissecting all the different pieces and learning about marketing from the ground up. We were actually located in an area of the office where it was customer service reps and marketing. So we directly understood and heard the phone conversations and the needs of our members and what they were looking for, and always trying to figure out how to better communicate that to them. And it was just something that I ended up being good at. And when the economy collapsed, I moved out here kind of on a whim and decided to go back to what my roots were when I was going to college the second time for English, which was massage therapy. So massage therapy put me through English, basically, and previous to that, bartending put me through criminal justice. And I opened up a massage business when I first moved to Colorado. It was 2009. People were still climbing their way back into corporate. I was waiting tables to support my business and working with a lot of young professionals like myself who were trying to get back in to, quote unquote, normal jobs. And I started back in corporate after about, I'd say, a year doing the restaurant work and massage therapy with this marketing background. And I just kind of bought my time and waited for the right thing to come along. And I ended up temping at Janus Capital Group. So I got back on their web team through the back door, basically. So I started proofreading, and then contract was up, and I went in and said, hey, I've got this marketing experience. And they put me on the marketing team. So I was content manager for all 7 websites, learned a lot of things about analytics, worked with the creative side and tried to merge those two. So I ended up there for about a year, and then it wasn't looking like it was going to turn into a full-time employee position. So I started looking elsewhere, and I continued doing contracting for a while, eventually getting into an accounting firm. So I was their marketing manager for 2 years. And the transition to having my own business was the result of trying to move up in my career. I ended up getting a job downtown that would have been perfect in line with, the finance and numbers side. But that's not something I'm passionate about. And the commute was 90 minutes from my home. So having a 1-year-old at the time and a husband who travels 2/3 of the time, I just decided to go out on my own. And I was talking to somebody who owns Monkey Business Franchising. So I was actually thinking about starting my own business and opening up one of his locations. And with my marketing background, he asked if I would also do marketing for him. And so I thought about it, but the more I thought about it, and I was playing with creating my own website around marketing, I called him up and said, what if you just became my first marketing client? And he said yes. So that got me started. So it's almost 3 years later, and I've had 33 clients. So the first year, I will say, is really tough. You're broke. You're broke for the first year, and just get used to it, I think a lot of people can relate to that, unless you're taking over a business that's already profitable. But I gave myself a year, and after a year, it was in a state where I could live with it. I could live with the income, and now it's fully established and getting referrals, and I'm busy all the time, and I can say it's worked out. So that's the long and short of it.
That is quite a journey, an exciting journey. And I have several questions for you throughout your career here. So you started out with criminal justice, which is intriguing in and of itself. Not what I expected, but you never know who's into criminal justice. I, for one, love the Discovery, like the murder shows and stuff. So that's really intriguing. I don't know that I could be on the scene. But I want to ask you, you said you interned for a police station, which is, I always recommend internships for whatever career you want to do. Please, job shadow, intern, do what you can, get your foot in the door right away. So I imagine that even though it was criminal justice, now you're in marketing, which is pretty opposite ends of the spectrum. What kind of skills did you have that translated from that internship that you maybe still use today?
A lot of questioning. I was on the scene for perpetrators getting interviewed, and just getting to the bottom of things. I don't know that there's a direct translation, but that's the closest I can think of.
Yeah.
I think I was interested in criminal justice because I have a sense of social justice, and that was the only way I could think of back then to make things right or protect people, or I don't know. It was just something that just intrigued me, and I don't think it had anything to do. I wasn't even thinking about like carrying a firearm or anything. I didn't even hold a gun until I was 21, and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
back then. So I have since, just to
Why
get
not?
a sense of what it's like. But yeah, then I knew that I had made the right decision not to pursue that once I did. But it was really toward the end of, and this is another little detour, but toward the end of my college, my associate degree in criminal justice and the internship, I took an acting class and decided that I was going to go for that. So hence the bartending and being in New York and auditioning and going through all that stuff, and then going back to college. So I went back to college, studied English because I'm always interested in the behind the scenes, whether it's the writing and the story, and that actually translates more into the marketing because once again, I'm behind the scenes trying to make everything look good for someone else, and I'm happy in that place. It's, being on camera and on radio right now is really what I thought I would get used to 20 years ago, but I'm still not.
And understandably so. I share your passion, believe it or not, as much as I do this every day. I really enjoy the behind the scenes too. So I totally am with you on that. It's a really great feeling when I have a nice product for my guests, my clients that come in.
Right.
And I'm sure you share that as well. Well, and I also, I commend you for going back to school. Not everyone knows what they want to do at 18 years old. And I think forcing kids to do that is really harsh way to to live in this environment. Take your time, decide what you want to do. And if you go back to school, even in your 30s, it's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
It's all okay. I just read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, and it's not about what you set out to do. It's what you become, and you're always becoming something else. And I've played many roles in my real life that, I didn't need to do the acting in the end. So
yeah, but you seem to be in a really happy place.
Yeah.
And enjoying your clientele.
Yes.
So I want to ask here, so this wasn't your first business that you started. You started a massage therapy business. I imagine that regardless of starting a business, there's some things that are the same across the board, right?
Yes. So this actually ties into what we're going to talk about later regarding failure, but I learned a lot from that business. Setting it up, you had to market that business as well. So I had that background, so that was at least something. I didn't have the budget to do a lot of marketing, so it was a lot of grassroots stuff, making my own flyers. I was interviewed by a local paper where they put my information in there. I traded with someone for a website. It's all grassroots, bootstrap, just figuring it out type stuff. Just because you're a good massage therapist or a good mechanic or what have you, doesn't mean you're great at marketing yourself. And I see that over and over again. And I've helped clients with the bare minimum, just setting up an email address and setting up a filing system. And I'm not an accountant, but I tell them to use QuickBooks. I think it's a personal journey, and only one that you can figure out for yourself in many ways. Because just because you own a business doesn't mean you went to business school or understand the ins and outs. There are lots of things that you're going to have to figure out.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Well, and I imagine, so we all know that marketing works across industries, right?
Yep.
There's typically a marketing team, or you outsource your marketing team for your business, no matter what business that is. There is a marketing element, period. That being said, I assume that there are some tenets that are the same regardless of the industry that you're marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I call that marketing infrastructure.
Okay.
I think at a bare minimum, you'll need a website. You need a brand, a logo. You need a Google business page. You need some social media presence that's appropriate for your industry. I work with clients in many industries. I'm industry agnostic. It's just what I do is take the best practices that you would normally use in a corporation, and I bring them to small businesses. And small businesses can't afford a marketing team. I used to be on a 60-person marketing team. Most small businesses don't have that, and I bring all those elements, at least the basic elements, and whatever they can afford within their budget, and we prioritize to make sure that when somebody finds them online, that their presence is consistent across the board, and their message is consistent, their logo is consistent, and that's pretty much it. I think those are the main things, and then every industry has its own marketing standards, and then I just dig into that.
Yeah.
So
I imagine you're kind of a jack of all trades.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everything. There are things I outsource. Graphic design I outsource. Some social media I outsource. PR, I definitely have a PR partner that I work with who's great. And I think everyone should stay in their lane and just be really good at what they do. I'm really good at strategy and vision and messaging and project management, and just coordinating all the other pieces.
Awesome.
So
How important is networking?
I say very important.
Okay.
When I started my business that I'm currently working on, I started with a client. And then I realized obviously, even as a marketing company, there are things you fail to do with marketing, and that's something you learn from too. But I needed to get out there more. Most of my clients I know in person. I'd say a third of them come from networking because it's relationships. A third comes from people finding me on Google, which means I'm doing a good job. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing online. And then a third comes from the Women's Chamber. So I'm a member of the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, and going on just over 2 years. And that's brought me a lot of business, either directly or through someone who knows someone through referral. So I'll attribute that to the chamber.
That is impressive, and that's actually how we met. I am also a member, just recently, actually, and so you were there at the first event that I got to attend, which was really exciting.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. I hope you enjoy it. Everyone that I've met through the chamber has been amazing.
Yeah, it was the first, so I am really awkward at networking, super awkward. I always have the drink in my hand and the plate of food, and I don't know where to go with myself, and I'm like, for whatever reason, conversation fails me. What I do all day at work, but I go to a networking event and I just tune out. But this was the first place that I immediately was welcomed with open arms. I had people coming up to me, "Hi, how are you? What's your name? What do you do?" And it was really exciting because it was hard. It's hard for me to take that plunge.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Which I imagine you have to maybe push a few of your clients into making that plunge.
You have to get out of your comfort zone to grow. All those people that approached you were once like you and had other people approach them. And it's something that takes practice, like public speaking or almost anything else. When I was in the accounting firm, there were plenty of accountants that was really not their comfort zone. So I would hold just, seminars about that, about how to start conversations, about LinkedIn and your presence on LinkedIn, and breaking down that perception that it's just the purpose of it was just looking for jobs. But it's really people checking you out, and it's part of marketing. And if I'm hiring an accounting firm for my business and I'm dealing with a partner and then there's an associate working on my account, not that I'm going to question any of that, but I might go and look up that associate on LinkedIn just to see what their background is and see how comfortable I am. And it just gives you a sense of security that the person that's working on your stuff is qualified, at least, even if you're not dealing with them directly.
Very important.
So, yeah.
I agree with you on that. I am big LinkedIn stalker. It's one of my favorite things to do before I get someone in here, just to get a little flow of, areas that they are knowledgeable in. So I know what to ask and how to ask it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, networking is key with a small business. I don't think you necessarily need to do it so much when you're in a corporate environment, maybe at the top levels, because again, when you have your own business, you're in sales, whether you like sales or not. You are doing sales all the time. And real estate agents, you see them with their window clings and all that stuff, that they are their brand. All their business cards have their photo on them, So I think depending on the business, you need to align your personal brand with your business brand. So if you think of Richard Branson, for example, everybody knows he's CEO of Virgin, and he's done a great job, aligning those things. And I'm sure he does a ton of networking. He's out there all the time. That's part of your role. You're not just doing the work, but you have to go out and get the business too. And that starts with relationships. It starts with networking.
Right.
So,
yeah. Awesome. I'm digging these tips. I have so many notes going here. But I want to ask you, some people may be thinking, I feel like I do a good job of marketing. Is there one way that you can tell that maybe they aren't doing a good job of marketing and could use a hand?
Yes. I'd say Google.
Okay.
So if you Google them and they are not showing up because they're not relevant, their presence isn't relevant, it usually means there's something up with their website. It's not as, it doesn't have as much content as it should, and relevant content, because Google, all they care about is relevancy for the user. They're not necessarily, if you Google shoe stores, they're not just going to give you a list of shoe stores in your area. They're going to give you a bunch of different places to choose from to buy shoes. They're going to give you, reviews to look at and things like that, so you can make a choice, because that's a very generic search term. But if you're looking at jewelry stores in Littleton, it's going to be a little bit more specific, and that's where your Google My Business page comes in. You've got to make sure that your website is on there, that your brand is on there, that you've filled it in as much as possible with your hours, your location, your services, your products, images, videos, all those good things, all enhance your SEO. And SEO, for those of you who don't know, is search engine optimization. So optimizing all of your content online. If you were to Google a business and you might see their website come up, you might see their social media come up, their YouTube channel, anything that's associated with them or their business, and that's what you want. If you don't have any of that, you may need some help with marketing. So that's just the basics.
Yeah.
Just the beginning of your marketing infrastructure.
Well, and the basics are you got to have a firm foundation before you can build up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what kind of current projects do you have going on? I realize we can't say client names, and that's totally fine. But that being said, what kind of projects are you getting into as far as industry-wise, or if there's something specific that you're venturing into at Shepheard Marketing?
Yeah.
What's up?
So I have a really interesting vertical in real estate recently. I just keep getting referrals and meeting a lot of agents and mortgage brokers. I have a home inspection business. I've got a property manager, and mostly in Colorado, but there's a property manager in LA that I'm working with as well. So in terms of industry, it's an unexpected vertical, which I have no experience in other than marketing for it. And the more I do those, the better I get at marketing for that industry. Project-wise, today is the second day of working on a website launch. Yesterday, I launched another website. So 2 websites in 2 days. I'm doing more websites lately. A lot of companies, businesses, small businesses, have just a few pages up or just basic information, and they need to follow best practices. So I just help get them there so that they can build on that in their marketing.
So how much does the world of website building fall under your mat? Because as you said, this is kind of new for you territory. You built your own website quite clearly, and it's super nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely.
It's a work in progress. They all are.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. You need constant updating on that.
Right.
But yeah, so how much of that would you say was your business and is your business now?
I would say it's probably 25% of my business at the moment. I didn't do websites at first. I just worked with whatever somebody had and made it better. And sometimes you realize you need to scrap what you have and start over. So I got adept at it pretty quickly. And I do have help. There are contractors that I work with who are specialists in Squarespace and WordPress and Wix and things like that. And I just tap them if I need a little bit of help. But they have a lot of resources internally, too, that you just can teach yourself how to do these things if you've got the time.
Right. Yes. Google. Get all the help that you can.
Yeah.
We do have to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate, but when we come back, we are going to talk about some simple tips, as well as maybe some failures and how we bounce back from that. So stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. We'll be right back. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Check out shepherdmarketing.com as well. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am having a stellar conversation here with Kim Shepard, CMO of Shepheard Marketing. That is Chief Marketing Officer, which is a title you got to choose for yourself, and something I, for one, am very jealous of. I don't get to choose my own title, but that is exciting. I would like to talk. Um, so we're talking about marketing, right? For small businesses, that is the majority of your clientele. You have experience coming from in-house marketing teams, and you've had quite a career. And by that I mean you've been in different industries. This is not your first, but your second business that you've started. So you've gleaned a lot in life to set you up for where you are, and you're very successful from what I can see, and your website's amazing, and you've got some awesome clients. But
Thank you.
you're welcome. I want to get in here a few small tips for some small businesses, or even if you're pretty well established, I'm sure everyone can brush up on some marketing tips.
For sure. One of the things that I run into a lot is, it's going to sound silly, but clients don't know what their passwords are to anything. So that's one of my first recommendations, is make sure all your passwords are in one place and that they're protected and safe, because it makes the rest of it a lot easier just to get into things, get access to things, to poke around and fill out their online profiles on whatever platforms they are existing on. Another one would be, just make sure you have the right marketing infrastructure for your industry. If you have any sort of a sales structure where you've got a pipeline, a lot of people are using notebooks, Excel spreadsheets. I highly recommend a CRM. There are plenty of CRMs for small businesses that are affordable and will keep track of all of your contacts, convert them from a contact to a lead, and then a lead to a customer. And they get associated with an account, which is the name of their business. And knowing what your pipeline is also lets you know how much time you need to spend on business development and marketing and sales, as opposed to just filling orders or whatever it is your business is. It's a huge component. I would make sure that you know how to edit your own website. And that's part of what I do, is teach my clients, if they want to know how to do some of the stuff that I'm doing. I don't believe in hoarding information, because they're going to not be a client anymore, because they won't need me, because they will always need me. I have clients that have a slow season and then they come back, or they just need consulting. But I would recommend also, apart from the technological infrastructure, just remaining as a resource in your industry through social media, through your website. You want to give tips for your own industries, and people will not see you only as someone who's promoting themselves, but someone who is trying to help people regardless. If you own a landscaping business, constantly email tips out for the appropriate season, and whether they're just doing annuals and perennials or they're doing vegetables, what's relevant in the location that you're servicing, and just constantly put those things out there, because when you do, people know that you're an expert, and you just build credibility on top of credibility. And then when they need you and they need something, they know that you're the person they're going to call, not just somebody else out of the yellow pages. So maintain a presence as far as being a resource for your industry. Make sure you know your passwords. Make sure you know how to make changes to your website. Make sure you're looking at all the analytics about who's coming to your website. Use Google Analytics. It's free. Make sure that code is on the back end of your site. Look at the insights that Facebook gives you. It's free. So you may as well use it to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and then just change your strategy accordingly.
Yes. Social media is an interesting route to take when it comes to marketing, because there are tons of ways to go about free marketing on social media. Facebook, as you mentioned, is free. LinkedIn, creating an account, always free.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal. But there are definitely some times that you can have paid ads and things like that, and marketing strategies that they'll help you with. Do you have perhaps just a non-detailed, I guess I should say, marketing strategy here for what's best used if you are going to invest in, say, a Facebook ad? Should it be something that I'm passionate about? Should it be something I know that my clients are more focused on? What makes for good, if I'm going to invest money on it, what should be something that I'm looking for?
There are two things. If you're business is primarily active on Facebook, which a lot of small businesses are, because small businesses are dealing with people in the community for the most part. So their customers are their friends, etc., and it just works together. If you're going to do advertising, at first, I would recommend going big or going home, because you don't want to just kind of halfway do something. If you're doing it with Google, they're going to tell you that you're limited by budget, and that's not based on them telling you that you should pay them more money because they want more money. It's based on your competitors and what they're spending and how competitive you are. So if it says if you're spending $2 a day on something and it says you're limited by budget, it will recommend that you spend a certain amount. It could be $20 a day, and you might not have that in your budget, but you do what you can, but at least know where you are. It kind of will help you in projecting what your results are going to be. You can't expect great results for a small budget, and whether it's small or big depends on what everyone else is doing, not on what's currently in your budget. So there's that. And then with Facebook, there are two ways of advertising. One is to literally come up with an advertising campaign with images and the right messaging, etc. The other way is, and in both cases, you determine what you're going to spend. The other way is to boost posts. So if you have a really successful post, if you're, again, landscaping and you're talking about maintenance or aeration or whatever for your lawn, and that's a popular post that people interacted with, you may want to consider boosting it for $10 or $20 for a week and see what happens, because you will reach more people, not just necessarily people who are in your contacts or following your page. And just a brief little thing on the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn and who you're targeting and how it's reaching them. Facebook, you're starting to really, let me put it this way. With Facebook, you're serving ads up to people who you're targeting, and they are seeing those ads whether they want to or not, whether it's the right time or not, etc. When you're advertising on Google, you are only serving ads to people who are searching for relevant products or services. So I think sometimes, depending on your industry, one may be better than the other. I do sometimes make impulse buys because something was served up to me on Facebook, but generally it's just in the way and I'm trying to get to the content that I'm looking for. When I really want something, I Google it. When I'm looking for a service or a restaurant or what have you, products, I Google it. I Google everything. That's just me. And then you're guaranteed to get relevant stuff that's at least in the organic part. All the ads are going to be on top. And even some of those ads are not necessarily relevant because people will bid on keywords that are not necessarily related to their business, or they're bidding on keywords that competitors use. For example, if you're Nike and you want people to find you regardless, if they're looking for like Brooks sneakers, you're going to put Brooks in your ads, and then people, if they Google Brooks, they may get served a Nike ad. So there are little tricks like that I see competitors doing. Executive coaches are they'll put in the names of other executive coaches, and then you'll be confused. Why am I, if I'm Googling, John Smith, why is, Jane Smith coming up? It's because Jane Smith is bidding on John Smith. So, yeah.
Yeah, I actually, one of the things that I saw on your website was a tip that you have. So I assume that this is along the lines of keyword stuffing or black hat methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good assumption. I think a lot of those things are being phased out just by, Darwinism, I guess, because Google picks up on all that stuff. And people, black hat SEO is the practice of putting in words that aren't necessarily relevant, either in the metadata on the back end of your site or literally typing them on the page. But if the page is white, they make the print white so you can't read it. And it's not serving anyone well at all, because you're going to get a higher bounce rate if there's content on your website that is not relevant to you, they'll find that out quickly and then just get off the site. Google's really good at looking for that stuff. They have these spider bots that literally crawl your website and crawl everybody's content. And again, they care about the experience of the user who is Googling. They don't necessarily care about your experience, especially organically. And when you are advertising with Google, it does actually help your SEO ratings. It does help your organic search as well. So, and sometimes businesses can plateau on that. You might get great results and then just start flatlining for a while. And that just means you've got to change your content or you've got to bid more on keywords, etc. But yeah, it's a really bad practice. When I worked for that accounting firm, I fired an old SEO company and then I hired a new one and then ended up firing them, and I just taught myself how to do it because they were not necessarily reporting things back to the client. They were charging a lot of money and limiting their keywords. And I think keywords and everything need to change on an ongoing basis as often as your content is changing. So that's not how SEO works. So I honestly, some SEO companies really know what they're doing and they're doing it right. They're doing their research, they're presenting things to their clients, presenting options. They are reporting back to them. So there are some really legit SEO companies, but just like in the early days of websites in general, people would charge whatever they could get for whatever they could give. Sometimes it wasn't much that they were giving, and they were charging a lot of money for services that really weren't benefiting just because somebody said they needed to have a website. And you don't necessarily need to go all out when it comes to just being your authentic self and making sure that your business is authentic. That's just really what it's all about. So we just worrying about the basics, and one of the main thing, is really important. But the main thing I think is that 80% of SEO, I don't believe you can control, but try to control the 20% that you can by making sure that things are labeled properly, making sure you're following the general guidelines, for content, things like that, and you'll do fine. So
I love that. Yeah, and that's one aspect I think of marketing that some people might take for granted. We do live in a world where we Google all the time. It is officially a verb, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to Google that. I need to Google that. Have you Googled that? Yeah, it's very important to get that. That's how you get seen in front of a broader audience always. And so I think SEO is one of the more underrated aspects of starting a business, but one that is key.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, wonderful. I know that you have some marketing focuses on your website. Strategy, inbound, technology, and lead generation. And so you go through and you define all of these on your website and exactly how that might apply to your small business. The one that I'd never heard of before personally was lead generation. But I would appreciate just a broad overview of each of these.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me just start with technology because we pretty much mostly covered that. So technology includes your CRM, which is a customer relationship manager, your CMS, which is a content management system, which is what your website is on. So either Squarespace or WordPress, anything else that, if you're a retail business, you'll probably want a POS system. And that tracks your customers and their behavior and that sort of stuff, keeps track of who they are. So, that said, then there's the online technology, which is Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook. Even though it falls under social media, it's still technology. And technology is always changing. And you don't have any control over what Facebook does or LinkedIn or Google. Definitely. Google doesn't even know what Google's doing half the time. So you just kind of have to stay up on that stuff. And so I think that's really important. Technology is, everyone's like, word of mouth is the best. Well, word of mouth is now social media and technology. So especially when people don't talk to each other anymore. So strategy, just from a high level, you have to have some sort of a strategy, even if it's basic, knowing that you're going to do marketing in the first 2 quarters of the year, or your strategy can get as granular as every day I'm going to do this. I'm going to have, Tuesday tips on social media. I'm going to have, a direct mail piece going out every June, or, that sort of stuff. It's just knowing what your strategy is and why you're doing it. And so I just help my clients through that process, just figuring out what they've done, what they're doing, finding out why they're doing it, because just because we've always done it that way is not an acceptable answer. So, especially now. Inbound refers to SEO. It refers to attracting people to your website. And you do that through good SEO. You do it through social media. You do it through email marketing. And that kind of goes hand in hand with lead generation. So if you're doing those things right, the leads will come. Lead generation techniques could involve having a pop-up on your website that's called a content wall, where somebody gives you their contact information, their email address, and what have you, in exchange for something like a white paper or a vendor list or something of value, because people don't necessarily want to get spammed. So offering them something in exchange definitely helps generate leads and generate contacts, and eventually they'll become leads. As you nurture them, you have to nurture leads in order for them to become customers. Lead generation is also through advertising. It's through contests. It's through networking. Anything that can possibly get you a lead. And I think the biggest one is actually just treating your customers right, because they will A, stay a client, and B, refer more clients to you, and it costs less. And most business owners know that it costs less to keep a client than it does to generate a new one. But I think that sometimes customer service is overlooked when you've got so many other things going on. Sometimes it comes naturally to businesses, and they usually do really well, but you can't always rely on straight referrals and word of mouth. You have to generate leads in other ways too.
Oh, 100%. So we've mentioned both. Fostering relationships is really a key part of any business, right? You want to make sure that you have an ongoing dialogue with your clients and knowing what they need. And surprisingly, I think people really are excited and get excited about doing business with someone that perhaps remembers their daughter's birthday. Mm-hmm. Right? Silly little things like that make a huge difference in your
CRMs are great for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, this word of mouth and the social media aspect. So when you're starting out, when you're gathering your clients, you need to really focus on the technology. And once you've got those leads and they become your clients, focusing on customer service is really important. Is that what I'm...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I go through that on a daily basis. And it's just a matter of balancing business development with a current client need. And this afternoon, I'm going to be launching a website for a client, and that's got to be my focus, and everything else has to kind of wait. And that client will appreciate that. And other clients, potential or other existing clients, will appreciate that I've made that a priority. And it's constantly prioritizing and reprioritizing, and that's based on the marketing plans of everybody, and just coordinating, what's important to everyone. And there are always going to be last minute things that come up, last minute meetings that you have to go to, last minute cancellations, which are fine with me because I always have something else to do. But yeah, so I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. Is it a 50-50 split? As you mentioned, again, based per client, it's going to change over time. Mm-hmm. But as a small business, if I were utilizing you as marketing, how much would you recommend for me that I need to spend on the technology aspect versus fostering that clientele rapport?
I think most of the marketing infrastructure and technology happens in the beginning, or when you're trying to set that up, regardless of the stage of your business. But once you get it in place, you shouldn't have to pay too much attention to it apart from utilizing it. And you may have to change some behaviors. Some people have 2-3 calendars going on. I recommend pulling it all into one, so you know everything that's going on with just, personal and business. And, I've got my daughter's events, my husband's travel schedule, and that affects how I organize my day, and it affects how well I can serve my clients, because I'm not gonna book 3 meetings back to back, because every meeting has some follow-up action to it, Yeah, sorry, does that?
Yes, yes, no,
Did I answer
totally.
your question?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about some failures. And the reason that I bring up failures is because I don't think that anybody starts a business without failing a little bit, at
Huh.
least at the beginning. Hopefully you aren't failing after you've established. We've seen that. Obviously, some big titans have fallen over the years, things like that. But I think that success and failure always go hand in hand.
Hmm.
So I want to ask you either personally or, as you mentioned, you've done it in house marketing, you've seen some businesses. I'm sure you've seen some businesses pull some stunts that were maybe iffy, got them in some hot water. But either personally or in your industry professionally, talk about some failures that you've seen that helped you grow.
Yeah, for sure. So many failures. But so I would say every failure has led to a learning opportunity. I went to a small business talk where someone was talking about the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So some people may do some things that are not necessarily following a certain regulation or whatever with money or taxes or going through a process as you should from start to finish just so that they can keep things moving. And I do believe that you don't necessarily have to be perfect to get a job done. It needs to be as good as you can get it, but it's never going to be perfect because you've got, even with small businesses, there's the time availability of your client. Are they going to be able to give you everything? Are you going to have to create some stuff that they don't have, things like that. But some of the failures that I've experienced are, and not so much failures, but things that I've learned later I could have done better. Like I was talking about before with analytics, a lot of these platforms have analytics built in. So I used to spend a lot of time thinking it was good to put numbers into a spreadsheet and then show my client exactly what was going on, assuming that they're interested in spreadsheets and they're going to read it and understand it, when all I needed to do was share my screen and show them the really pretty graphs and, the nice, that saved hours. And when you charge by the hour, that's money for your client. And I'd rather spend time doing more and being more effective than charging them by the hour for really silly stuff. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I hope that helps.
Yes, absolutely. It so does. We have just a couple minutes here, so I definitely want to make sure that we know where to find you. So if you want to share that and perhaps what the future looks like for Shepheard Marketing.
Hopefully the future includes scaling so I can hire people and make more money and have more free time, because otherwise you do burn out, and all businesses have to figure that out. So I'm in the process of doing that now and coming up with documents that include processes and things like that I answer all the time for clients, and I can just say, here's how you give me access to one thing or another. The way you can reach me if you're interested in just having a chat about what you might need is www.shepheardmarketing.com. Shepard is Shepheard. It's not a usual spelling, but however you put it in, I should come up after 3 years in Google. So Google Shepheard Marketing, and you can find me.
Awesome. We will also have that information available below in our description, so be sure to click on that link. You can find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Kim, it has been wonderful having you on. Thank you so much for all your tips and insight into the world of marketing.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, visit Shepheard Marketing. That's SHEP, heardmarketing.com. Thank you.